And welcome everyone, fellow music fans, friends new and old. In this video I'm going to be bringing you my top 30 albums of 2014, numbers 30 through 16. If you have not already checked out my previous video of honorable mentions and personal favorites, please make sure to do so. I look forward to seeing your comments and critiques. I got a lot of music to talk about in this video, so I don't want to waste any more time, and I'm sure you're all excited to see what ended up on this top list. So without further ado, part 1 of my top 30 albums of 2014. And kicking off the list at number 30 was once a French shoegaze black metal project turned purely into clean atmospheric shoegaze. We have Alcest with Shelter. This was an album that at first I really wasn't too drawn into it after loving the last album, Le Voyage de l'Âme. That album I think was the pinnacle of Alcest's black metal and shoegaze collaboration. But with this one, the production was a little bit more stripped down, the music was a little bit more simplistic, a little bit more repetitive, but after buying it and more repeated listens, I realized that the elegance and the brilliance and the beauty of Alcest is still undoubtedly here. It just took a bit of a different form, and some of these songs are absolutely breathtaking when you really dive in close with headphones. It took a while to open up, but I'm so glad I dove into this because this was some very quality stuff, and it's still undoubtedly Alcest, even though the sound is a little bit different. Another album at number 29, a little bit of a similar idea in sort of a musical direction and musical sound change. We have Cynic with Kindly Bent to Free Us. This was one that came out earlier in the year, one that I could not have anticipated more, and this had Album of the Year potential written all over it. But after hearing the first 3 singles from the album before the album came out, I realized that as a trio, Cynic kind of took this more stripped down approach to writing music, playing music, and even the production on the sound of the instruments completely changed. This isn't at all really comparable to any album they've done in the past, but that's what Cynic is best known for and probably the best at when it comes to creating something that can stand on its own each and every time. And I think that with Kindly Bent to Free Us, we have them working as a trio, but coming together in a way that the songs, they're just completely unpredictable, and in a way where it's not really metal really at all. The distortion is toned down, it's all clean vocals, but it's still undeniably Cynic, and it's one that you really got to listen to and kind of go into it with an open mind. It's still Cynic in its most progressive form. Although it's not as metal as it used to be, it's still a damn good release in my opinion, one that I knew was going to still end up on this top list. And for those who think that Cynic is no longer Cynic, just listen to Holy Fallout and, get back to me on that. Moving on, at number 28, we have Big Elf with Into the Maelstrom. And with this one, Big Elf kind of took a hiatus at the end of 2008 after they released Cheat the Gallows. Damon Fox, encouraged and pushed by his fellow friend Mike Portnoy, who we all know, don't even need to go there, who played drums on this album, and I think that was one of the best collaborations Damon could have done. Concept album, old school prog with kind of this doom metal kind of thickness, psychedelic as fuck, and just really cool stuff. And the fact that Mike Portnoy's on here and there's a song called The Theater of Dreams is a very curious kind of idea and concept, but nuggets aside, this was a damn good release. If you like old school progressive rock with some nice thick doom laden riffs, this is one to check out. Big Elf with Into the Maelstrom, number 28. Coming in at number 27, a band that I actually caught on tour earlier this year, we have Monuments with the Amanuensis. Definitely wanted to make sure you pronounce that correctly. Heavy, groovy, tight, technical, progressive metal with kind of this Michael Jackson aspect in the clean vocals. We got Chris Barretto from Ever Forthright and former Periphery fame. Definitely some great stuff, really gets the body moving, just some heavy riffing, but also just some very beautiful clean moments as well. If you're into bands like Periphery, Tesseract, and you haven't heard this band yet, definitely make sure to check it out. It'll definitely be up your alley. Monuments with the Amanuensis, number 27. Moving along, we have another really heavy release, one that kind of took its time coming out, had some vocal change as well, and when it came out in the end, I think I understood why the wait took so long. And this was Bloodbath with Grand Morbid Funeral. If you are unfamiliar with Bloodbath, they are a just pure death metal supergroup with members of Catatonia, Opeth, and now Paradise Lost, with Old Nick on vocals on this. It was just something a little bit more, less direct, but it was something that was a little bit more full of character, but with a little bit more kind of dynamics brought to the table. If you want some, straight, clear-cut death metal, Bloodbath's the way to go. Number 26, with Grand Morbid Funeral. Moving along at number 25, we have the almighty musical mad professor, Devin Townsend, with Casualties of Cool. Now, Casualties of Cool is actually the name of the album and the project. And what it is sort of this haunted Johnny Cash folk kind of country southern idea with female vocals primarily, with Che Amy Dorval, I believe is how you say your name. This is really soulful female vocalist, and Devin also does some vocals on this, but it's kind of more of a female driven approach vocally. If you're a fan of his album Ghost and you wanted to hear more mellow acoustic music from Devin Townsend, this is definitely the way to go. Very haunting with thick atmosphere, but just kind of a fresh new take on the whole kind of southern rock, whatever you want to call this. Just very unique stuff. He continues to innovate and continues to bring more stuff to the table, and just proves that he can really just pull off any type of music in any setting. So if you're a fan of Devin Townsend and you want to hear him in a mellow setting, check out Casualties of Cool and let me know what you think. Number 25. Moving along at number 24, we have a atmospheric black metal release from one of the most experimental and forward-thinking bands of the genre, Blut aus Nord, with Memoria Vetusta Part 3 Saturnian Poetry. Wanted to make sure I said all that right. I want to make sure I get this cover art in full detail. Absolutely beautiful cover art. Blut aus Nord on this album have returned to their raw, atmospheric black metal sound in full form. After coming from the 776 trilogy, which implemented a little bit more of an avant-garde, a little bit more of an industrial electronic element, really wasn't a fan of that, and really hoped that they would take that old school black metal atmospheric approach again, and what they gave us was undeniably one of the best black metal releases of the year. And even coming at the very end of the year, this was one that once I heard it the first time, just nailed it and stuck with me and knew it had to end up on this top list. So coming in at number 24, Blut aus Nord with Memoria Vetusta Part 3 Saturnian Poetry. Definitely check this one out. Moving on to number 23, we have a band and an album which was one of the biggest underdogs that I heard all year, one that has received great praise, and a lot of people have been talking about this. At number 23, we have Black Crown Initiate with The Wreckage of Stars. Now, this was one that I was surprised I didn't hear earlier, but after seeing this pop up a lot, and having a lot of praise in both the prog and metal worlds, definitely wanted to check this out, and I'm glad that I did, because this is something that, although it has some really technical and heavy moments, it also has some very nice acoustics and some nice clean moments, although there's not much clean singing on this album, but the clean singing on here is very anthemic and very powerful. I gotta say, these guys definitely brought a great debut, and one where I feel like if this is going to bring them this amount of attention this fast, I know that they're going to be going places, and if they come through here, I'm definitely going to be seeing them live because I can't wait to see what they're going to be able to do in the live setting as well. Yeah, definitely great stuff, and a huge underdog, and a band that has a lot of potential, and can't wait to see what they're going to do next. Moving on to number 22, another album that got a lot of attention this year, and a lot of people actually put this at the top of their list. Unfortunately, it didn't grab me as much as their debut full-length did, but one that undoubtedly got on this list, so, that's still great. We have Ne Obliviscaris with their new album, Citadel. Now, Ne Obliviscaris is a technical metal band with progressive metal and progressive rock undertones, but mix violin with classical kind of song structures, and aren't afraid to branch off into even folk territory at times. Very forward-thinking progressive metal, and the technicality isn't so over the top where it becomes borderline unlistenable. It's very tastefully done. The vocal approach is very unique, especially in the cleans. It really just stands on its own, and one that has clearly made a big impact. And even though I think this album is a little bit weaker than their full length, it just proves that this band is undoubtedly at, full working potential, and I cannot wait to see what their third full length brings to the table, because I feel that although people think this is a perfect album, I feel like they are just breaking through the surface, and I think the best is still to come for Ne Obliviscaris. But for number 22, Citadel definitely lands a very great spot. Moving on in more progressive fashion, we have, once again, talking about them on the channel, Trioscapes with Digital Dream Sequence. I saw these guys again earlier this year. One of the tightest live bands I have ever seen in my life. These guys bring a instrumental jazz fusion onslaught to the table, very much influenced by the old school King Crimson sounds with the distorted bass lines and just cracked out saxophone lines, almost heavy metal bass lines and almost kind of breakdowns at the same time. It's got some nice cool percussion parts, but the end of this album is where it really starts to take a nice idea with The Jungle, which was their longest piece to date, which you just gotta listen to it from start to finish, because it really just has that jungle-like massiveness. And definitely check it out if you're a fan of the last album, Separate Realities. That was one of my favorite albums of that calendar year as well. So Trioscapes at number 21 with Digital Dream Sequence. Moving to number 20, a lot of people garnered this with a high amount of respect. Sean Complagrath has been forcing me to get into this band because it is, one of his top favorites. And finally, it has clicked with me. So be happy for that, Sean, that it's on this list, and I like it very, very much. We have Triptykon with Melana Hazmata, the second full length from Triptykon and Tom G. Warrior from Celtic Frost. Their sound is very hard to classify. It's blackened, it's doomy, it's death metal, it's got thrashy moments. It comes together in a way where it does leave you speechless and at a loss for words in trying to define its sound, but that's really not important, because when you hear it and you hear the power and the energy that is laced within Triptykon's music and Tom's writing style, it's just something that you have to hear and then make your comment later. This was by far way better than their debut, in my opinion, and the best thing I've ever heard Tom G. Warrior come out with. Just a huge emotional powerhouse and just a crushing musical delivery. Definitely check this out if you haven't already. I know a lot of you love this album, so I don't really have to think I praise this further, but definitely one I had to put on there without a doubt. Moving on to number 19, we have something that I thought was going to appear a little bit higher on this list than it did, but it's still here, and it's still one of my top favorites from the year, without a doubt. We have Mastodon with Once More Round the Sun. Here we have Mastodon making almost the Hunter Part 2 with a little bit more of a commercial appeal, a little bit more of a melodic, more stripped down, accessible approach. Still proggy, still forward thinking, still extremely unique, but it's still fun. This is some of the most unique and fun sounding music, especially the first half of this album. These are just like arena rock bangers, one after the other. First half of this album is incredibly fun to listen to. Second half is a little bit more of your progressive, a little bit more drawn out, heavier, and even a slower tempo. I don't think it's as strong as their previous albums, but still, I love this band. I love what they're able to do, and I just love how they just keep reinventing progressive metal over and over and over again with each and every album. Definitely check this one out if you haven't already. It's still Mastodon, tried and true. And at number 19, Once More Around the Sun, Mastodon deserved its place. Very, very highly on my list. Moving on to number 18, we have part one of a two-part album that came out this year from someone who's already appeared on this list once. And of course, you might already know what I'm talking about with that brief hint. We're talking about the Devin Townsend project with Sky Blue. This was disc one of the Z2 album package that came out earlier this year, and one that had a similar vein of his past album Epicloud, with more of a massive, almost pop metal feel, something that you can just sing along to, something incredibly melodic but still very genuine, and has messages that really get you into enjoying the music even more. We have Annika van Giersbergen adding just more incredible female vocals, and the partnership that her and Devin have and have had over the last 5 albums is just getting better and better and better. Although I think this is a weaker album in comparison to Epicloud, I feel that Devin musically has tapped into musical moments of his past, going back to albums like Accelerated Evolution, and even some from Ocean Machine on here, but also bringing in that more Epicloud pop-laden feel, but also kind of adding some more fun new ideas that he's never done before. And it's one that you're just going to have to listen to and take in the musical experience that is Sky Blue. And Devin Townsend, I'll keep saying it, is just an innovator and just an incredible musician and producer. So with Sky Blue, number 18. Moving on to number 17, we have some more groovy progressive metal. Didn't really like their first debut record, although a lot of people gave that some high praise. Did not let this band slip through the cracks this year, because I'm very happy that I was able to hear this album. We have Sky Harbor with Guiding Lights at number 17. Just some absolutely brilliant artwork on this too. Really great stuff. So we got Daniel Tompkins, formerly of Tesseract, as their lead vocalist. Brilliant vocalist. I just don't think that the vocal approach from the first album really grabbed me as much as I wanted it to, because that's the real reason as to why I'm drawn to this band in the first place, is because of Daniel Tompkins. The music itself, very similar to Tesseract, but a little bit more... It's got a little bit more of an atmosphere. The guitars are a little bit more grungier and got a little bit more fuzz. It's got a little bit more of a kind of a thicker, kind of raspier, grainier tone to it, but it's got groove, it's got some killer bass lines, killer vocals. Dan has done it again, and I think he's really going to go places further with his vocal, and can't wait to see what else comes from this band and more that comes from Daniel Tompkins. So number 17, we got Guiding Lights from Sky Harbor. And to close off the first part of this top 30, at number 16, we have Intervals with A Voice Within. This is some more groovy, technical, and melodic progressive metal. First existing as a purely instrumental band, Intervals have incorporated vocals onto this album, bringing the music kind of a step back in its technicality. Although I feel like the music itself kind of suffers in the step back, the added vocals really work very, very well on this. This vocalist fit very well with the music. All clean vocals, but this is a guy that has kind of a mid-register kind of timbre to his voice, and it's got kind of like a punk rock energy to it at times. It's very, very unique, and I love that the way not only is the guitar riffing great, the soloing is great, but it's not afraid to have softer moments as well, and even more jazz moments. We saw some of these moments on their instrumental albums of the past, but wrapped within a song that feels more like a complete piece of music with vocals. It's really quite progressive, and unfortunately, I don't think their vocalist is still with them. I would have loved to see what they were going to do next. But if they continue down this road with a vocalist, I think the Intervals could really do something even better than this on their next album. But this one definitely lands itself in a very great spot at number 16 to close off this part 1 of the top 30 list. What did you think of this list, everyone? I look forward to seeing your comments in the description box. And what are your top whatever lists of this year? Please leave your list down below and stay tuned for part 2, 15 through number 1, coming your way soon. Thanks a lot for watching, and I will see you in the next video.